I've had the fortune of encountering thousands of different species of animal. However, whether it be due to the rarity or the challenging conditions they live in, there are some incredible animals that I'm still yet to encounter. From the icy Arctic waters to the dense African forests, I'm going to share with you guys my top 5 bucket list animals to see in the wild. At number 5, a long-legged, insane animal that looks like some kind of wolf-giraffe hybrid, the maned wolf. The maned wolf is a striking solitary canid native to the grasslands of South America. It's an amazing hunter, it's one of the most beautiful animals, and despite its name, it's neither a wolf nor a fox, but its own distinct species. It has these crazy long legs that help it navigate the tall grasses of the Brazilian Cerrado and the Argentinian Pampas. Maned wolf primarily hunts small mammals and birds and are known for their distinctive roar bark vocalizations that are unlike any other vocalization that basically anybody has ever heard. They're an amazing looking animal. They're just so unique that getting to see one and photograph one, or particularly getting to see one hunt, would be a true dream come true. The best chances of being seen is in protected areas of Brazil and Argentina, though sightings, even in those protected areas, are extremely rare because maned wolves are so solitary. Their habitat is rapidly disappearing due to agricultural expansion because it's such a good farming area, so it makes conservation efforts critical for these animals. In addition to losing habitat, roadkill and domestic dogs are significant threats to maned wolves with diseases affecting their population. So they are sort of on a downswing. They're just such a fascinating species that I would love more than basically anything except for 4 animals above this to go and see in the wild. So that's sitting in the list for sure. At number 4 is an animal that is so easy to do, and yet I've never done it. It is the basking shark. Basking sharks are the second largest fish in the ocean, growing up to 40 feet long. They're the second largest filter feeder after the whale shark. They swim around with these enormous mouths, open water along the surface, gulping in krill and plankton. It's unbelievable. It's where the name basking shark comes from, because they're basking along the surface, or so we thought. They're not really. They're just gently gliding through the surface trying to take in plankton and krill. And there's a couple reasons that the basking shark is so cool to me. One is we do get them here in California. My buddy Austin Derry got to swim with one. I'll try and cut that in if he lets us here. So I'm just insanely jealous because a couple different people that I know have seen basking sharks, and I've been out on the water hundreds, if not thousands of days and never seen one. But in order to see them, you really have to go to Scotland. So it's way up on my list to go over there in the summer months in these UK waters and dive with these incredible sharks. I'm so lucky because I've got to be with every other large shark species except for these ones so far. What makes them kind of hard to do from a camera standpoint is they live in all these plankton and nutrient-rich environments. That's where they're feeding, so it's really hard to film them because the water's typically not clear when they're congregating, but they do congregate in these awe-inspiring areas, all hanging out together, sometimes up to dozens of them off the coast of Scotland and Ireland. So swimming alongside a basking shark is a bucket list experience for me, and one that I hope one day soon I'll get a chance to do. And quite honestly, I just will do it. I'm just not sure when I'm going to be able to. Coming in at number 3, it's such an obvious one. It's probably number 1 for a lot of people's. It's polar bears. Polar bears are the largest land predators in the world, adapted perfectly for life in the Arctic. They're kind of like the reverse bear. They've only been around 150 or so thousand years when they branched off from grizzly bears. They adapted these huge paws to walk on ice. When I say they're the reverse bear, they reverse hibernate. In the summertime, they lounge around and they're miserable and they don't eat anything because it's too hot, and their metabolism slows down and their testosterone plummets, which is why you can see them kind of lounging around the melted Arctic. And then in the winter, as the ice comes, they get all ferocious, their testosterone spikes, and they want to go kill and hunt and eat and bulk up, and they can lose like 20% of their body weight from winter to summer. It's crazy what they do, and they're just so fascinating. I think that my attraction to polar bears is the fact that they're one of just 3, or you could potentially call it 4 animals that actively chooses to hunt for human beings. So that's polar bears, tigers, crocodiles, and leopards, which is kind of open to debate. But Polar bears is not open to debate. These guys will actively hunt for people, and one thing that I am desperately excited to do is go up to a place called Churchill, Canada. There's a group up there called Churchill Wild that will let you walk with polar bears, so you can actually walk out into the Arctic tundra or subarctic tundra. I really want to have that experience of approaching a polar bear on foot and learning how to judge body language and size it up and it size me up. And I do plan on, at some point in my life, going to Churchill, Canada and getting to do this incredible thing before polar bears in their fragile Arctic ecosystem with the impact of sea ice melting disappear, which is possible if these animals don't adapt. That being said, only being 150,000 years old, these animals are very young, and usually young animals are very adaptable. So I have high hopes for polar bears actually hanging on, even though some of the science says that it's shifting. I think they can adapt. Regardless, they're at the very top of my bucket list because I want to have that crazy, intimate, on-foot experience with the world's largest land predator. Coming in at number 2, I'm so jealous because my mom has done this. Basically everybody that's serious in wildlife that I'm friends with has done it. I gotta do it. It's a trek for mountain gorillas. Mountain gorillas are one of 2 subspecies of eastern gorilla found in the high altitude cloud forests. They live in these 2 populations, the Virunga Mountains and then the ones in Uganda. So they're so interesting because the way they're led by a dominant silverback male in these highly social groups, and that male can weigh up to like 450 pounds and stand 5 feet tall, and obviously the old, King Kong chest thumping, like they're so cool. But what's so cool is that gorillas have such an intellect, right? Not only do we share a lot of DNA with them, like similar to chimpanzees, slightly less, but there's so much intellect, social structure, and behavior and understanding that you can go on these gorilla treks where you're hiking through these dense jungles for hours, and then you sit down and sit with them and you submit to them. You don't just sit with them, you actually submit and you go, hey, like I'm here, like accept me, realize I'm not a threat. The gorillas are so smart that if you put your hand out and you don't maintain eye contact and you submit, you show submissive behavior, some of the gorillas, like what happened to my little sister when she went with my mom, will come over and make contact with you and show you, like, I understand, you're not a foe, you might not be a friend, but you're not here to hurt me and I'm interested in you. That back and forth dynamic, I think, is just so fascinating. In addition to that, mountain gorillas are critically endangered from their habitat loss and poaching and disease and all that stuff. So ecotourism is vital for funding conservation efforts and protecting these magnificent animals. So it feels almost like an ecological responsibility to go and have this profound experience of interacting with these giant, unbelievable primates. So yeah, top of the list for me are these silverback gorillas. So what would you ask could come above that intimate experience of touching one of our closest living relatives, the gorillas? Well, for me, it's probably a bizarre one, but it's the real unicorn. It's narwhals, the unicorns of the sea with their long spiral tusks. This species of toothed whale is only found in the Arctic Ocean. It's so bizarre. It has this elongated tooth that is believed to help males navigate and find mates and establish dominance, and they literally sword fight with it, which I think is unbelievably insane. If you had read about narwhals in the Hudson Bay as an old English explorer, 200 years ago, and you said there were these unicorns of the sea with a tusk sticking out of their forehead and all this, you would have said that's false. You would have said that's a lie, just like a unicorn. And yet it is a real life unicorn that lives in these amazing places up in the north like Hudson Bay. And narwhals are amazing. They can dive 5,000 feet deep in search of food in these Arctic oceans. Imagine how cold that is. And then they live alongside beluga whales, their closest living relative, and they can even interbreed with belugas, which, I don't know, it's just so weird, like interbreeding whales, one with a tooth, one white with a bulbous head. I think it would just be insane to go on a narwhal expedition, navigating these icy waters by ship or by a small boat and finding these unicorns in one of the most hostile, difficult to access places on Earth that is romanticized by people like Ernest Shackleton, having these insane, terrible voyages up there. I just think it would be so cool to go and do this and maybe even help with the conservation efforts that are critical to these animals, because we have to keep them around. They're just so unique. They symbolize untouched, mysterious aspects of the Arctic, mysterious creatures, weird mythological things like oceanic unicorns. So that's why they sit at the top of my bucket list. Do me a favor, let me know what your top 5 bucket list animals are in the comments, because I'd love to find a new one to add to my list. Take care.